we'll continue with our poem Birches by Robert Frost. But I was going to say, when truth broke in, with all her matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them as he went out and in to fetch the cows, some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself, summer or winter, and could not play alone. So here we keep seeing the poet alternating between whimsy and practicality. He sometimes feels that some boy has shaken the birches, and the other time he feels that some ice storm has done the job. But the lines here speak of his willful choice on how he perceives the world. Despite truth's persistence, personified here like an adult, prim and precise, and more often than not a fun spoiler, the poet prefers the whimsy. The boy of his imagination springs back into view out of an errand to bring back the cows, but the boy still finds the time and inspiration for pleasure. Even in this world, work is mixed with play. We find our imaginary friend happily roaming around or romping around the birches, not put out by anything, whether it be the lack of playmates, special equipment, season, or circumstance. Like him, the poet also finds a carefree thrill in his own playground, his imagination. So he doesn't need any excuse to have fun. So the poet wants to say that the boy who is romping around the birches, he doesn't need any playmates for his games. He is carefree and he doesn't need any excuses for having fun in the nature. One by one, he subdued his father's trees by riding them down over and over again until he took the stiffness out of them, and not one but hung limp, not one was left for him to conquer. Frost once had remarked that it was almost sacrilegious climbing a birch tree till it bent, till it gave a swoop to the ground, but that's what boys did in those days. So all these lines are filled with nostalgia as the poet details the boy's skill in climbing and swinging from the birches. We can sense the poet reliving his childhood in his daydreams. And there is also a subtext of him becoming worldly wise here, where the boy practices and learns of aiming high, testing boundaries, knowing how much to push, making the most of what's at hand, and life's other bigger and small lessons. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon and so not carrying the tree away clear to the ground. So here we see that the boy lives somewhere far from the town, and as a result of this, he has not learned the urban games or the games played in the cities, and he has invented games for himself and he plays those games alone. He doesn't need any friend or a playmate for these games. The boy is playing the swinging game with all the birches belonging to his father. One by one he has conquered, or he has climbed all the birches, which means that he has played with these trees for such a long time that the stiffness of the trees has gone forever and they have become soft and supple and flexible. He has almost conquered or subdued each and every tree, as a result of which there is not a single tree which is not bowed permanently. In the course of his play, he has learnt everything about swinging. For example, he learned that it was not wise to swoop down too abruptly to make the tree fall to the ground for good. When he used to climb upon the top of the tree, he kept his balance. Therefore, he climbed to the top branches as dexterously or as cautiously as one fills a cup to the brim or even above the brim. The last action of the boy was to jump down from the top to the ground. He flung himself away from the tree and kept his feet before his body, and then by with a hissing sound he came down to the ground. So he has learnt all these things, how to manage to drop down from a tree or how to climb a tree. All these things he has learnt alone, and he never needed a playmate for this, and this was a sort of learning lesson for him for the life also, to how to manage things, how to cope with the situation, how to handle a situation. The birch tree in a way has been a mentor or a guide for him to learn and live in circumstances and how to behave or how to handle a situation. Thank you. We'll continue with the last part of the poem in our next lecture.